So why don't you tell me a couple of interesting points, Michele, from this video?
Yeah, so this video is about a gastroscopy course on a conscious sedated patient. During the procedure, there are a few moments where the patient was a little bit annoyed by the procedure, especially when John was getting to the pylorus, and I think that this part was pretty interesting because he said that the scope is getting longer, and then after the pylorus, he shortened the scope, and the patient starts to improve his tolerance. And also there is a nice part where John was cleaning the mucosa to have a better visualization. And I think that here is nicely demonstrated how to deal with a patient that is not showing his best tolerance to the procedure, maintaining the calm. And it's something that I think is very important for beginners, because maybe when you are at the start of your endoscopy journey, if the patient is not very tolerant, you may rush a little bit the procedure, and
because the patient is not tolerant. Yeah. So explain, maybe before we ask John, explain exactly what he does to solve that problem or mitigate that problem, because this is something you guys asked for yesterday. You asked for live cases with no propofol. I said that's not very easy to demonstrate, but these cases from John are maybe a little bit mitigating that. But how exactly, break it down a bit, does he do that?
Yeah, so the first thing is that even if the patient manifested some problem, but some
discomfort, maybe?
Some discomfort, yes, sorry. He keep the calm. It doesn't change the speed of the procedure. He keep talking with the assistant, with the patients. So at the end, if you are not rushing, if you are not showing that something is going wrong, that something was...
So first thing you're saying is reassure the patient.
Yeah.
The second thing is probably you need your technical skills such that you're on complete autopilot. So you don't have to worry about a maneuver to get from A to B or manipulation of the tip or anything else, because and then that frees your brain and your cognitive function to just focus on the environment and managing the patient. The third thing I'd say is that it's a team, and the head nurse has a fantastic role here to keep the patient calm. So they will speak to the patient. If you're not able to speak to the patient, I think the more unconsciously competent you are, the easier it is to do two things at once. I think the speed is really important in all endoscopic procedures. If you do everything really slowly in a controlled way, firstly, you do have control. And secondly, any firing of what we call the nociceptors, which are your stretch receptors, are minimized. And we know if you apply pressure slowly, patients will tolerate it. If you have a rapid stimulation of your nociceptors, they tend to react very adversely to that because the pain stimulus is much greater. So all of these things combined, and the final thing, and probably the most important thing, is you can do this, right? So in my head, it's very rare that you meet a challenge that you can't overcome, and if you have that confidence, and that confidence is shared by your team, that then radiates down to the patient, and the patient is aware that, despite the fact they may be uncomfortable at that time or having some issues, they will get through this and everything will be fine. And at the end of the day, David, you've also got to have the executive decision that if it isn't working, you can abandon and have another route.
I think I'm not sure that everybody has a nurse at the head end, but that's a very, very useful thing. And you see the interaction between that person and the patient here. In Ghent, we don't have that. And I do think that that's an extremely important role. And I know in the UK it's required, John, is that right? Or I don't know how it works, but
we have to have two nurses in the room, David. So one manages the head, irrespective of whether that's an OGD or a colon, and the other nurse is in there as accessories.
Okay, the other things you got from this video?
The insertion part, because it's easy to insert when the patient is on propofol. When the patient is on propofol, I think that you can really appreciate the upper sphincter of the esophagus. But here, John said something that is interesting. That is that you can stop after the upper sphincter, because it's a zone where the patient can breathe and relax a little bit after the traumatic part, let's say the discomfort part of
The cracker.
yeah. And I think that it's very important, because a thing that I've learned here is not to rush during the esophageal intubation, not just only for visualization, but also to avoid any damage to a lesion that can eventually be present in the esophageal mucosa, because you can provoke bleeding, stuff like that. And sometimes the patient during upper sphincter intubation is not tolerating very well, and you rush the first part of esophageal intubation.
So like take a pause after you get past the cricopharyngeal. Anything else you took from the video?
Then there is a nice displaying of the GJ during the insertion, then during the retroversion, the J maneuver, and then during the withdrawal.
I mean, what about this water jetting into the esophagus? Is that something, John, that we should avoid, or is that something that doesn't matter, or what do you think?
Looking back, we should probably avoid that. If I'm
The only reason that I bring this up is because of course, in patients under propofol with no endotracheal tube, this is a very bad idea. But I'm not sure. Is it the case, because I'm not showing so much unsedated gastroscopy, is it the case that this is a major problem in patients with a competent cricopharyngeus? Well, there's a scope in it, I guess.
Well, I don't know, but I probably, if you look at the safety features, I probably wouldn't do this. I think there's an error here, David, because I should have given more simethicone on the way in. And what I'm doing here is getting rid of the bubbles. So I can see, can you see the bubbles? So